2 years ago, I made a video called How I Blew Up My Bench Press. And in this video, I explained how I went from 160 kilo bench press to 180 kilo bench press. Now, according to the laws of diminishing returns, since that video, my rate of progression should have slowed down, especially since I was already at an elite level. However, in the 2.5 years since that video, my bench press has actually gone up by 32.5 kilos, all the way from 180 kilos to 212 kilos. And my competition bench press has gone up by 37.5 kilos from 175 kilos to 212 kilos. Now, to put that into perspective, when I made that video, a few months later, I went to Junior World Championships and I came 14th on bench press. This year, I went to Junior World Championships and I came 2nd on bench press. And for someone who's known as a deadlift specialist, this was an enormous win. So in today's video, I'm going to be explaining to you everything I did to make yet another leap in my bench press. And for those of you that watched the original video, implemented some of the tips, and maybe have hit a bench plateau since then, this should help you to break through some of those. And for the people that didn't watch that video, these tips might just be the things that you're missing in order to explode your bench press. But before we get into the video, make sure to smash the like button. It really helps to push your video out there. Hit subscribe as well so you don't miss any of my videos when they come out. And make sure to drop a comment on the tip that you think is most valuable. Side note guys, before we get into the video, I've got some huge news for you, okay? The Young LA Black Friday sale is going live a couple of days from now. So on Tuesday, 25th of November, the Young LA Black Friday sale goes live. And with my code NATE, you'll be able to get 30% off. Not only this, there's probably their biggest drop they've done to date, which is their Batman collab. This drop is serious. You do not want to miss out on any of these items. You've also got the Comfy collection. On top of this, there's going to be an enormous restock. So with all these things together, this is categorically the best time to buy something from Young LA. And if you do, and you use code NATE, not only will you get 30% off, you'll also be supporting me a hell of a lot. To preview it, click the link down below and make sure you're ready on Tuesday because things are going to fly off the shelves. And again, code NATE. I'm gonna see you guys there. Now, tip number 1 is to experiment with your form. Perfecting your form is something that can add kilos to your bench press without actually having to physically get stronger. Now, for the bench press, there are 4 main components that dictate the lift. There's descent speed, touch, leg drive, and leg position. Descent speed is about how fast you bring the bar down to your chest. Now, on one end, there's the lifters that just slam the weight down into their chest and explode back up. Now, the benefits of this as far as strength are reduced energy loss and time under tension during the descent, meaning that you're not actually using as much energy to bring the bar down. But the main drawback is the reduced level of control that you actually have. By slamming the bar into your chest, you don't actually have the weight under full control. And this could also lead to some injury risk for some lifters. And then on the other end, we have a super slow tempoed bench descent. The benefits of this are increased control and the ability to actually manage your technique through the descent. But the drawbacks are that the time under tension is longer and you're actually using more energy as you bring the bar down. Next, we have the touch, with the 2 main methods being soft touch and sink. Soft touch is where you let the bar touch your chest as gently as possible. Now, the benefits of this is actually a reduced range of motion as you're not sinking the bar into your chest, which is actually bringing the bar down further. And at the competition level, you're much more likely to get a faster press command as the judges will give you the press command once they see that the bar is still. And the more gracefully and gently you touch the bar on your chest, the quicker you are to probably get that press command. But the drawbacks of this is the fact that you need the bar under control at all times, and during that period, you are going to be using energy. And then on the other side, we have sink. This is where the lifter lets the bar sink into their chest and then generally explode up. This is a lot more common among larger lifters with more muscle mass, and this combined with what I'd call a pop leg drive can feel extremely powerful for some lifters. But the main drawbacks are that you're not only increasing the range of motion as the bar is sinking further into your chest, you also may get a slightly longer press command, meaning you're going to have the bar in that position for slightly longer as the bar actually settles into your chest. And some lifters might find that they just don't have as much control doing it like this. Next, we have leg drive. And the 2 main forms of leg drive are what I'd call constant leg drive and pop leg drive. Constant leg drive is where you're maintaining a steady level of tension in your quads and glutes throughout the entirety of the bench press. Now, visually, the legs will be still throughout the entirety of the lift. Whereas pop leg drive is where once the bar touches the chest, the lifter then explodes up, creating what I'd call that pop. Now, the benefits of constant leg drive are that you're maintaining your position throughout the entire lift, and you're much less likely to have your glutes raise off the bench, which can red light you in competition. Whereas with pop leg drive, again, a lot of lifters might just find it more explosive and feel like they have a lot more power off of the chest. But with you shifting your glutes up, you do run the risk of having your glutes come off the bench, which again, gets you red lights in competition. And then last, we have foot position, which is how wide or how far forward or back you have your legs. Now, most lifters will either pair a wide and back leg stance or a narrow and forward leg stance. And for most lifters, this will pretty much just depend on what they find most comfortable. Now, generally, these are grouped together by the explosive guys who usually like a fast descent, a sink, a wide and back leg stance, and a pop leg drive. A lot of bigger, more explosive lifters seem to prefer this style. Whereas the slightly slower descent, soft touch, feet narrowing forward, and constant leg drive is what you'll see on a lot more lighter lifters, which also appears slightly more technical. But in reality, there are a ton of lifters that buck this trend, and it kind of all comes down to what you find the most comfortable. Now, back when I made that last video, I was pretty much doing the former. My descent was moderate, but I would sink the bar slightly, my feet were wide and far back, and I was doing a pop leg drive. Now, this all seemed to be working, it was comfortable, but then that year I went to Junior World Championships, and I missed my last bench press by my glutes coming up. And from this point onwards, I decided to experiment with a variety of different methods. I went with feet forward, constant leg drive for a bit. I went with a slow descent for a bit, but none of these felt quite right. And after a disappointing showing at both the Arnold's and Nationals, I decided it was time to go back to the drawing board. And what I landed on that was perfect for me, and what I've continued to do since then, has been a moderate descent speed, so I can control the bar on the way down, but I'm not losing too much energy. A soft touch to reduce the range of motion and get a quick press command. My feet still wide and further back, because this is what I find the most powerful, and constant leg drive to prevent my glutes from coming up. Now, I'm not gonna say that this is the best way of benching, but this is just what I found has been best, and what I feel has transformed my bench press to be dependable, comfortable, and show up every single time in competition since. So if you guys are benching and something doesn't feel quite right, start experimenting with those 4 different aspects, and you'll probably land on one that feels like it works for you. I'm interrupting my own video. Obviously, all the tips that I'm giving you guys in this video, all of them work, and all of them will put kilos on your bench press. At the same time, there's only so much I can do with general advice. Like you just heard me say, in order for me to hit my full potential on bench press, I needed something that was customized to me. I needed a form that was designed to help me succeed in the bench press. And that's not something that I could have got from general advice from random people online, right? That's something that I needed a coach for. So if any of you guys are looking for a coach, it just so happens that since it's Black Friday, I never do sales on my coaching, but I want to offer you guys something special. So if you guys want to start making real progress in the gym, break through those plateaus, hit strength and physique goals that you've only wished for, fill out the type form down below. I'm gonna put a link to it. You can go to my Instagram and DM me Friday, and I'll know you come from this, and we'll bear that in mind, and let's get you to your goals. Tip number 2 is that I experimented with more bench variations. In the bench press, most people will have a weak point at one point or another throughout the lift. For some people, this is off the chest. For some people, this is that lockout. Some people find it difficult to maintain control at the bottom of the bench press. And by only doing the competition bench press, you're not actually able to isolate and improve any of these weaknesses. So my advice is the thing that you should try is a bunch of different bench variations. Now, there are tons of different bench variations that you can try, but my top 3 bench variations would be Larson press, block press, and tempo bench. Now, with the Larson press, this is where you perform the bench press with your feet lifted off the ground, typically straight in front of you. And now the benefits of this is that it eliminates leg drive, so you're using straight upper body power. It increases the range of motion and time under tension during the lift, which also helps you to regulate the amount of weight that you're using, because you're not going to be able to lift as much weight as you would during a regular bench press. This is often a great option for your tertiary bench session or for back downs where you want to get more muscle tension but use less weight. Next, we have board press or block press, where you do the bench press with either a block attached to it or a board on your chest. Both of these mainly train the mid-range to the lockout portion of the bench press. They allow for overload, so you're going to be able to use more weight than you typically would in a regular bench press, which can increase confidence and get you used to actually having that weight in your hands. Also, by limiting the range of motion, it reduces the stress on your shoulders, which for someone like myself with extremely long arms, this can be a big thing, as my general bench range of motion can be quite big, meaning it's very fatiguing. This allows me to get the work in without generating too much fatigue. And then lastly, we have tempo bench. This is where you perform a very slow descent down to your chest. And this one here is amazing for your overall control and form practice, as you have to be in control of the bar throughout the entire descent process. It also increases the time under tension, and this can be a great option for top set low volume work. If you've got a set between 1 or 3 reps on either a secondary or tertiary day, to get some heavy work in, but have it be more challenging and limit the actual weight that you can use. For me, during this time span, I used a bunch of different bench variations, and all of them helped me to overcome some of the weaknesses that I had and break through some of those sticking points that I wasn't able to actually isolate by just doing loads of bench press. Now, my next tip leads on from one of the tips that I gave in my last video, which was to increase your frequency. But this tip is optimizing your bench microcycle. Now, your microcycle is about when you actually do the lifts throughout the week. Back when I made that last video, I would bench on a Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Now, this worked well at the time, but I would say the obvious drawbacks of this was that my Tuesday session was often a wash because my chest was too fatigued from the previous day. Not only would I bench on Monday, this is when I'd also do my chest accessories. So this really limited the amount of quality work I was able to get on Tuesday. And then for Thursday, I'd feel fine, still probably not optimized, as my chest had just about recovered. And then we had another 4 days until I benched again, meaning this was probably a bit suboptimal for my overall technique practice. However, what I've switched to is benching on Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. Now, by more evenly spacing my bench presses throughout the week, not only am I able to show up to all of my bench press sessions feeling strong, recovered, and prepared, by spacing it more evenly throughout the week, my technical proficiency has improved, as the longest time between benching only being 3 days means that it doesn't feel like a million years since I've last benched, the way that it sometimes would between the Thursday and Monday sessions that I did previously. I'm also able to get a higher quality of work across all of my sessions. Now, another thing I don't think I went into detail in that video was about how you actually structure your bench press sessions throughout the week to get the best results. So if you're benching 3 times a week like I am, you're gonna have a primary, secondary, and tertiary session. Now, how do you actually do these sessions? Do you do your primary on the first day, secondary, then tertiary? Do you do tertiary, secondary, primary? How do you actually do it? Well, the answer is neither of those. The best way of doing it, in my opinion, is secondary, tertiary, then primary. So on Monday, I have my secondary session. As in your secondary sessions, you're still pushing fairly heavily, but not as heavy as you would on your primary day. But these two being far enough away from each other means that you're able to recover properly from your secondary session by the time you have your primary session. Then in the middle, that's where I put my tertiary session. As this being the session where you're lifting the lowest loads and has the lowest general intensity, this is the one that you want to put before your primary session, so you're not too tired from that session and you're able to prime yourself for that primary session. So the way that these look like in the week for me is Monday, I've been doing block press. I do a top set of 3 and then 3 sets of 5 back downs. This is also where I do my bench accessories, which I'm gonna come on to later. Now, Thursday, I would do Larsen press. So right now, I've got a top single on Larsen and then 3 Larsen back offs and then a 3x6 on Larsen. And then on Saturday, I've got a top set. Right now, I'm on singles and then 2 back off sets. Now, my next tip is just one word, and this word is dips. Dips are, in my opinion, my #1 bench accessory. They target all 3 main muscles in the bench press, namely the chest, triceps, and front delts amazingly, and also challenge your stabilizer muscles and core, being one of the staple bodyweight exercises. But what I found is that it's not a secret that dips can be a great bench accessory. But weirdly enough, one thing I found is that very few powerlifters seem to actually do dips to increase their bench press. And it's not because dips don't work, but it's because most people say they actually can't tolerate dips and they find themselves getting injured by doing dips, so they take them out of their program. But I think I figured out a way to do dips in a way that is safe, effective, and is gonna carry over to your bench in the best way possible. So the first thing I do on dips is that I pause at the bottom. Now, this applies to almost every lift, but when you pause at the bottom, this greatly reduces the injury risk. In order to pause the weight, you have to be under full control. And a lot of times when you see somebody injure themselves, it's during a fast, dynamic movement. And pausing it kind of alleviates this. But not only this, as a powerlifter, when we bench, we have to pause it. So I feel by pausing it, this is gonna allow for greater carryover. Pausing also increases the time under tension, so you're likely going to be able to get more muscle growth using less weight. My next tip for dips, and this one might seem a bit weird, but this is to limit your range of motion, at least at first. One reason why people might injure themselves on the dips is just by going way too deep. Again, if you're worried about injury risk in the dips, it's more worthwhile for you to do them, but just to go an inch or 2 shorter range of motion than you typically would, than to completely avoid them because of fear of a shoulder injury. There's never any point going super deep on an exercise if you're not actually able to be comfortable in that range of motion. So when you're starting out, maybe go an inch or 2 higher than you actually think you should and just start from there. And what you'll probably find is that over time, that comfortable range of motion is gonna increase and you're gradually going to be able to get deeper in the dips as your muscles and joints adapt. Now, my last tip would be try the pyramid form of training, as opposed to reverse pyramid or top set back off. Now, I was doing top set back off on dips for a while, but I've recently switched to actually doing ascending sets or pyramid work. Now, even though I'd agree that top set back off or reverse pyramid is the overall more superior way of training, sometimes when it comes to exercises like dips that we're using to supplement our bench press, pushing these too hard can actually be too fatiguing and possibly do more harm than good when it comes to our actual bench press. When we're doing an exercise, not just for the purposes of bodybuilding or just getting stronger on that exercise, but for the purposes of benefiting our squat, bench, or deadlift, we want to think about getting quality work in whilst managing fatigue. And by doing my dips in ascending sets, so I'm starting off moderate and getting heavier with each set, I'm not quite able to push as heavy weights as I did when I did top set back off, but I'm actually able to get a higher average workload because when I did top set back off, after my top set, my chest was cooked and I'd have to drop the weight significantly on my back off sets, and this was probably more fatiguing. But by doing the pyramid style, my actual average workload is higher. The average weight that I'm doing for my sets is higher, and it's not gonna be as fatiguing. And so while reverse pyramid training or top set back off training is what's in favor now in the general lifting community, there is still a place for either pyramid training or ascending sets, especially when it comes to powerlifting training. Now, my last tip, and I couldn't leave without telling you guys this one, because honestly, this will then be a bit of a disingenuous video, and that is gaining weight. Now, I know this was a tip in the last video, but I've gained a lot of weight since that video. And honestly, in order to be transparent, one of the main reasons why I was able to increase my bench press by such a large amount in this time was going up a weight class. But the reason why I didn't lead with this is that I actually made a huge amount of progress while still in the 93s, gaining just a couple of kilos, but staying within the same weight class. And I feel like all the foundations that I said in this video, I actually started then. And during the time when I was still a 93 kilo lifter, but I was implementing these tips, my best bench press went from 177.5 kilos at Arnold's in March of 2024 to 192.5 kilos at World Junior Championships in September of the same year. So that's a 15 kilo jump within a matter of months in the same weight class. So I can't just chalk down all this progress to gaining weight, but yes, I did go up an entire weight class and a bit, gaining about 12 kilos from my days as a 93. When I was a 93, I was sitting at about 96. Now I'm sitting at about 108 kilos. And yes, this has made a huge difference. And this was one of the main reasons why my bench went from around the 200-ish mark to the 212. And I believe I'm gonna bench even more in a couple of weeks. Now, as far as why gaining weight increases your bench press, I spoke about this in the last video. Simply just picking up the fork improves your leverages for the bench press. It adds more cushion around your joints. It reduces your injury risk. And it is probably the lift that is the most tied to your scale weight. Anytime I've gone on a cut or I've gone on a bulk, the first thing that's gonna get that instant boost or instant hit is gonna be your bench press. Anyway guys, those are all the tips that I've got for today. Let me know if you enjoyed this video and if you want me to do more informative videos like this. And I hope that you guys can apply some of these tips and start smashing even more bench PRs. But anyways guys, thank you for watching the video. Again, make sure to look up for the Young LA Black Friday sale on the 25th of November.